Smooth on the map, never slip. What you gonna do when you out? Who you with? You ain't really don't bet, don't dig, don't do. Really on the road on the map, never slip. Put your hands to your lips, don't dig, don't do.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Apex this Tuesday night as Porsche Cup action beckons from the location known also as Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. Welcome to the Glen for round 6, the halfway point of season 28. Alex Goldschmidt joined by Steve Koenig in the Global Broadcast Centre overlooking this wonderful 3.36 mile 11 turn circuit, just over 1,500 feet over sea level. Surface temperature, well, track temperature 28 degrees centigrade, that's 83 Fahrenheit. Air temperature 21 degrees, 70 degrees Fahrenheit, 31% humidity, round about a partial cloudy, no chance of rain, 5 miles per hour of wind factor. Well, it's fluctuating between 5 and 6 miles per hour. Let's take you through the calendar as it stands so far, because we are at the halfway point. Next week we go to Sebring International Raceway, the former home of the Hendricks Air Force Base. Then we go across to the Netherlands, just by the North Sea coast, as Zandvoort will host round 8. We then take a return back to stateside to the streets of St. Pete for round 9. The Autodromo Enzo Dino Ferrari will host round 10. And then we go to the Temple of Speed, back-to-back rounds in Italy. And then it's a little trip over to the Ardennes Forest, to a little place called Spa-Francorchamps, to conclude the final round of the season on the 1st of September. Let's have a look before we go into qualifying and also the race format of our championship standings so far after the opening 5 rounds. Well, here is the side of things. We're currently underway and we're into the last 2 minutes of our 10-minute 4-lap qualifying session. 45-minute race with 45% fuel limits, open setup, 1 fast repair, and then first black flag will be at 12 incident points, and then every 12 incident points after that, each time will be a drive-through penalty. Unlimited sets of tyres are at the driver's disposal. But with that being said, let's take you through the quick run through the respective championship standings. Kent Kruger leads the mid-pack Larry's head of Chris Lown by just 3 points, who's tied with Keegan Gehrig for P2. Kenneth Ingersoll rounds out 4th, head of Sean Teeter, Jack Stadola, Justin Aitchison, Kenton Bandy, Tina Renee, John Mansalve, Corey Mitchell, Sean Guru, and Dylan Foster round out the top 13 as we look to have 40 cars plus on the grid tonight. Meantime, in the Going Pros, Michael Brock, the defending champion, becomes the new series leader after last week. And he's 4 points ahead of Mark Miller with Matthew Mosby, who's got 2 for 2 so far. Can he make it 3 in a row? Derek Tyndall rounds out the top 4 ahead of Kevin Zhu. Colin Winslow, Ryan Ryder, Spencer Baudouin, Brian Zinn and Oz Exelu rounding out the top 10. As we are into the dying seconds of qualifying, let's head trackside here at Watkins Glen, the International Long Circuit. And Michael Brock in qualifying has had a little drama, so he has gone off the circuit, but still is on provisional pole at the moment by just over 2.5 tenths of a second. So there is Kevin Zhu back with us. But Steve, what can we say? It's nearly school's out for the summer, buddy, because we are halfway through this series.
It's going to be a great one, and I do think the drivers need to think a little bit outside the box. A few drivers not too keen on the circuit and car combo, but I've got to say, it's one that I really look forward to. But with that being said, qualifying is out of the way, and now it's time to take a look at the grid.
Yeah, 43 cars set to take, well, 42 cars set to take to the grid. Let's take you through it as it stands, because it is going to be Colin Winslow that just got to pole position by a thread, let's put it that way. Michael Brock is going to start on P2, apparently, according to this. So please ignore the graphic on your screens at the moment. So there we go. Colin Winslow and Michael Brock on the front row of the grid, with Brian Lemke making a return, the season 26 champion. He'll have the returning Kevin Zhu alongside him on row 2. Mark Miller and Thomas Lathrop ran at row 3 ahead of Kurt Moss and Derek Tyndall. Sean Teeter takes Pat Clary's pole on the inside of row 5, and he's got Maximum Effort Motorsports Brian Zinn alongside him to complete row 5 and complete the top 10. Mosby and Ingersoll row 6, Littleton and Agudelo row 7, Baudouin and Mitchell row 8. We then go on to row number 9, and it's Schlosser and Monsalve, Bond and Geary rounding out the top 20, Kruger and Ryder row 11, Mayer and Harrigan row 12, Stodola and Wallace row 13, Exelou and Philip Foster row 14, Sunday, Laum, Joao Gabriel and Jake Harrigan rounding out the top 32, with Matt Bond, Ken Pepin, Stan Hammonds, Paul Bailey, Ryder Poe, Alex Ekholm, Brandon Banks, Marcus Monson, Donald Mensing and Jesse Mia rounding out the 42 strong for the last 6 on the grid not to have set a time. But this circuit, which has been around for quite a bit of time, is a big fixture as we are set and ready for these drivers to get going. A few more to ready up. Looks like we're going to have 35 that have been able to join the grid already, which means very soon we will have the 5 red lights on the gantry getting us going. And here we go, 45 minutes of racing here at the Glen, and we are underway. Winslow and Brock wheel to wheel into the 90 here at turn number 1. It's going to be downhill, cresting to the right hand side as Brock goes high, wide and handsome. He gets a really good run and into turn 2. That's a beautiful launch by Michael Brock, as it is going to be Kevin Zhu who's got through on Brian Lemke, as Miller and Lathrop go wheel to wheel. Miller gets through in the number 120 Mobil 1 car, and we've got a real good run up the hill as we go down the back straight in towards the inner loop for the first time, 2 abreast at points. Some getting a little bit braver than others, including the 282 of Kurt Moss, but he's been overtaken by Brian Zinn, who's already up 3 spots into 7th position as we go down through the outer loop into the chute into turn 6 and then into the boot here at the Glen. But some places where you can really get the opportunity to overtake, but what a start by Michael Brock. And you have to think of it from this perspective. Well, all I can say is Matt Mosby at the moment is currently sitting behind Jamaica's Kurt Moss, who did have dramas, let's be completely honest, at this in the last few races here, Steve. But nevertheless, a pretty good, clean start by the majority, if not all, of the field.
Well, this is the thing with Watkins, Glenn. You can go nose to tail and you can land up with the first lot of impacts, especially going and heading into what would be the bus stop. But Matt Mosby trying to move up through the order. He's got a little bit of pressure from Kenneth Ingersoll, who at the moment is leading out the mid-pack Larrys. He wants to try and get away from Sean Tito, who was one of the quickest of the mid-pack Larrys in practice. Michael Brock does set the fastest lap time, but it's also who can carry that bit of momentum. Now that the tyres have got a little bit more heat in them, everyone's trying to just get a little bit more pace underneath their run and see what they can do to stay in for the charge. Brian Zinn is a little bit more happy to be on a dry circuit instead of a very wet circuit that he's had in previous. But Kurt Moss keeping the pressure, getting a little bit of assistance from Matt Mosby.
Yeah, this is going to be Moss goes bounding over the curbs through the boot. So again, just a case of measuring your points of accessibility when it comes to making manoeuvre. Matt Mosby, twice a race winner in the last 2 rounds. Can he go for the 3-peat? That's going to be the big $64,000 question that's really got to be answered now here at the Glen, as we're nearly 3 wide. That's very close indeed. Schlosser and Agudelo going into battle. Agudelo to the outside. It's just so close and right in front of them. They've got there's so many drivers here that are really trying to put their best foot forward. You've got the 619 of Jeremy Littleton. kind of sounds like a bit of a move that Rey Mysterio would do if he was a bit more active in the WWE, but Spencer Beaudouin in the goal, blueprint 0-1-0, trying to get through on John Agudelo, who has been passed by Matt Schlosser, and then credited with the special stage brigade that we do have here on the Racing Nexus Broadcast Network. But again, we're just seeing so many close moves at the minute, but more to the point, Michael Brock seems to be a bit confident at the minute. He's just gone and put in a 1:46.8. So more to the point, it is just about trying to get this car up to speed, and he's pulling away from Colin Winslow. Winslow for the last couple of rounds has had ups and downs, but Michael Brock has admitted in post-race interviews for the last 2 weeks here, Steve, that when it comes to him and Matt Mosby, Mosby seems to have the edge. But at the moment, Brock seems to be doing very good things here as we're coming to the end of the opening 5 minutes here at the Glen.
Now, a couple of cars unfortunately taking a solid impact heading into the final corner, and that's going and having a little bit of fun for everyone. Brian Limper trying to catch up to Kevin Zhao, also seeing what he can do to apply a little bit of pressure. And I think with Colin Winslow and Michael Brock pulling away, these two are going to put their differences aside and see what they can do to move further up the order. Thomas hoping that he can get a little bit of assistance from Mark Miller behind him. Kurt Moss, Brian Zinn, Matt Mosby all seeing an opportunity to move up through the order. Unfortunately for a couple of drivers that got to see the wall on the outside and just landed up with a few cars a little bit broken after their drive.
Yeah, not that easy, but nevertheless, it is going to be the case that you've just got to make your move when it makes the most sense. But we could see the it could be the fact that we will see on the pit stop side of things to maybe see who's going to undercut who where, or undercook, let's say. You know, the temperatures here at Watkins Glen, they're not as toasty as you might think at this point of the year, but nevertheless there are some drivers that are making headway whilst the sun shines here. So air temperature 68 degrees Fahrenheit, track temp 77, well, into the high 70s, but the track temperature should be more conducive to the tyres. Colin Winslow sets the new fastest lap of the race, 1:45.68, and yeah, I mean it's just going to be the case of who's going to make the best opportunity present itself, because sometimes here you have to kind of force that issue, Steve.
That's it, and especially when you start working with the different classes. For Ingersoll up ahead, he's in a little bit of a no man's land compared to the rest of his class. You got Mitchell going and having a solid fight against John Agudelo, and John Woodslave going and fighting out at the top. It's going to be a great one to see who's going to be able to move forward, but it is going to be an eye out for Colin Winslow and Michael Brock to see what exactly they can do, as meatball flag does come out for Wallace. And our drivers starting to feel and what they can do to stay at the sharp end.
Yeah, and with Watkins Glen, with barriers quite very much in proximity, it does bite back hard. You can see how hard Michael Brock is pushing, because he was coming out of the final corner, out of turn 11, and he's put in a new fastest lap of the race. Oh, that's a stormer for the 421 Mountain Dew Baja Blast Porsche, 1:45.228. And so, yeah, a bit of a shame for Tony Wallace. We might be able to see if we can pick up a replay of that, because you could just see Michael Brock is absolutely flying at the moment. He's opened up the gap to nearly 1.2 seconds over Colin Winslow. Kevin Zhu is being hunted down by season 26 champion, the man who finished runner-up. And look, here comes Brian Lemke, and he's now doing what he can. Colin Lathrop is nearly mowed the grass coming out of the boot there. That could have nearly cost him with a slow down penalty, but Lemke charging towards Kevin Zhu, and you could, that was so wide coming out of the outer loop by the number 41. The Stealth Black GT3. I like the fact that out of everybody, Brian Lemke has just gone complete stealth. But all he needs now is a red light scanner on the front of it, just going from side to side, and maybe a voice box saying, "I am the voice of the Night Industries 2000, KITT, for easy reference kit if you prefer."
Long as it's not the rebooted version, I'm happy if it's the original. We don't need the reboot. But it's an interesting call to go and see the various colours that drivers have opted. Some going the more traditional way of what we've seen with the Porsche Cup cars. Others giving them a little bit of flair. I've got to say Thomas's purple, a bit of a shine to it, really does stand out from the rest compared to Brian opting more of the stealth livery. But the drivers also sharing a bit of paint up against the wall as they come out of the final corner. Brian being one of those drivers that doesn't want to go and smack the edge of the wall. However, he wants to keep the pressure on to Kevin to holding on to that third place. And if I went and took a look as they went through turn one, it looks like the sun is starting to set and life is going to get a little bit more difficult out for our drivers.
Yeah, that could mean one thing to me, Steve. The fact of it being that track temperatures could slightly drop here at this round of the championship. Of course, another 6 rounds to go after this week. We'll be running right the way through to the early part. The 1st of September will be the last of 12 weeks of competition, and we'll see who is going to be our respective champions. So, of course, the thing is Zach Peterson will not defend his mid-pack Larry's title, but more to the point, it is the case of, as we said earlier on, with regards to the driver's standings, you know, Michael Brock, he's looking to really start to get into his stride in the second half of the season, which will mean that it is part of an American doubleheader before we do a couple of trips across the Atlantic, so everyone will get their virtual frequent flyer miles. But Brian Lemke really starting to hustle along. Kevin Shue, the man from St Kitts and Nevis, has gone with the iRacing livery on his 992.2 Cup car, unlike the Nürburgring King livery that we so fell in love with last season in season 27. But again, Lemke trying to do what he can to close on in. And this is where things could get very, very tricky.
It's going to be an interesting one for Kevin, who is running wide in and out through the corners just to try and get a little bit of a run to break the toe to Brian. But take a look, Thomas is not going and breaking off as well, trying to close up the distance wherever he can, especially through the final sector. Seems to be a little bit more comfortable with the car.
Yes, indeed. It's just about having that comfort. That's what makes it a lot easier for these drivers to circumnavigate this just over 3.3 mile circuit. But Thomas Lathrop is still there or thereabouts in the battle for the final step on the overall rostrum. But the big key point will be, when will drivers decide to pit? Now, there has been a change. Corey Mitchell has got through on John Agudelo. And that is for P2 in the mid-pack Larry's, which is currently being led by Kenneth Ingersoll in the number 69 car, who is running upper position. So this is where you find that when we get to that halfway point. So please bear with us. We're just trying to get the blinking all sorted out here on the screens. But more to the point, I think, Steve, it's going to be about the fact of when people pull the trigger. And this is something that we do talk about on a regular basis here on Apex This. Right, John Monsalve, I think, has just hit his incident limit, and he's going to be the first one to serve a black flag drive-through penalty, which is not what he's going to want to have, especially as he was in the top 3 for the mid-pack Larry's, the 505 Yellow Submarine, as Brian Lemke has got through on Kevin Shue, and now Lathrop is closing in on the 243 from St Kitts and Nevis. This is going to be quite crucial about how these next 7 to 15 minutes are going to parlay out, because we don't know, and this is the complete honest truth, folks, we don't know when drivers are going to pit as Monsalve comes in to serve his black flag drive-through penalty.
Always going to be an interesting one for our drivers to see who can move up through the order and ultimately who will try and pull the trigger a little bit later. But unfortunately, the incident limits being 12 is not a lot to play with in these drivers. Just a simple slide gets you with a 2x, a contact with the car gives you a 4, wheel off circuit gives you a 1, and it racks up rather quickly as our drivers have been finding out. Mark Miller also trying to get his way into the fight with Kurt Moss, trying to go and close down the distance as well. So the train's starting to build up, and it does look like Kevin Zhao is the driver that is the cork in the bottle at the moment and not having an easy time out there.
Yeah, Kevin Zhou is not finding the pace underneath him that he needs in the 2:43 entry, because he's got Lathrop trying to go through on him. Nearly got him. Well, that was very, very close indeed for the 2:43 from St. Kitts and Nevis. And now Lathrop's got a head of steam. Going to go into the next left-hander. And this is where, again, another point. It's turn 10 through into turn 11. They've got to be very careful of kicking up the dust with the left rear tyre, coming out of the penultimate left-hander and also the final left-hander on this circuit as we head down the dip into the cambered right-hander here at turn 1 at the 90. John Agudelo is the latest to pick up and hit those incident point limits. I think this could be a big talking point, as some of the drivers were saying that the car and circuit combination doesn't work for them. But the thing is that when you get a calendar, unfortunately, folks, you have to run with it. And if there are drivers that need to pick up points to gain a little bit of damage limitation, well, sometimes you just have to grip it and rip it, don't you, Steve?
Now, it's always a difficult one out there for the drivers to... Sometimes you have a track that you really work with and others a little bit less so, but Watkins Glen does see the Porsche Cup go and race at it, so they can be rather helpful in terms of it. Just sometimes it's not quite the circuit you really want to gel with, and ultimately it's going to be an interesting one. We heard Mark Miller during practice saying that he's not too keen on the circuit and car combo, but at the same time, you had the likes of Kevin, Thomas, all saying they thoroughly enjoy the track combo. It's nice and flowing, and the cars just tend to work just as well. So it's an interesting way to move on, but our leaders, Michael Brock and Colin Winslow, they've checked out of the fight, leaving Brian in a little bit of no man's land. Kevin, who's the cork in the bottle at the moment, trying to break away from Thomas. Mark Miller, all trying to fight their way through as well. Brian Zinn trying to move his way up through the order, having a little bit of a better time than his last week race.
Yeah, Brian's in now, currently running P8 overall. Kenneth Ingersoll still leads the mid-pack Larrys and still remains in 11th position. The closest competition to him, this is a name I haven't said that's been in the top 3 for quite a while. Down in 15th place, Mike Bond in that very kaleidoscopic looking livery. And he's got also, not far behind him, Ryan Ryder in the 181 Pink Pig Porsche. Running P4, well, running P4 in the class apparently. So again, it's just the case of eking out all those little gremlins. As you can see now, look at the run that Ryan Ryder's got, and this is going into the boot. He slots in behind Mike Bond. Sean Tita hasn't had the greatest run of luck in this one. He's down 15 positions. He's all the way down in 24th. So for the man who started 9th on mid-pack Larry's pole, he finally got the win last time out. But this time around, it's not been the easiest of luck for him. So, yeah, it's just one of those things. Unfortunately, that is going to be Foster. I think that's just trying to find here. That's another car that has got a mechanical black flag. And that is going to be Dylan Foster in the 818, who must have hit the barrier.
Unfortunately, as we also jumped up, Kevin catching the wall on the way through. Matt Bosby pulls into the pits from the top 10 just to get his car sorted out. So an interesting call here where a couple of drivers getting put into the pits not the way they wanted, others a little less so on planning for strategy here. But it's going to be an interesting time because turn 1 is getting a lot brighter in through the windscreen of these drivers. They're battling to go and find their braking markers, and ultimately this is in for a solid fight right now to see who can move forward. Mark Miller finally getting a drive on Thomas. Kurt Moss going and pulling the pin. He's getting a bit closer, but rocketing over the curves, really bouncing these cars over and under every which way they can to try and move up through the order. So an interesting race, but I don't think it's going to be the easiest, as Kurt Moss trying to keep on the attack. Kenneth Ingersoll miles away from Mike Bond and Corey Mitchell, who is trying to stay in for the fight as well.
Yep, so we have just 26 minutes to go. Oh dear, that is one of the bonds. Oh no! Oh, that's a big moment. Big moment coming up the hill. Coming through out of turn 4 of the S's, and that has caused big dramas. Matt Bond, I think, being one of them. Derek Tyndall was the biggest casualty. He definitely had the purple meter going into overdrive, off track, sideways, up the hill through T4. That is not a place where you want to lose it, and that has tumbled him right down the order. Other drivers that are moving down the order: Alex Ekholm, Joe Mayer, Donald Mensing, Matt Bond. But Derek Tyndall, that was Code Brown, clean up on aisle 3 at turn 4, and he brought along the squeegee to mop up the mess. Big time moment for him, and that is not going to put paid to a potential good result here at the home of the Glen.
Yeah, not an easy time out there. Jeremy Littleton trying to go on a hard charge. He's got Spencer on the back of him. Kenneth going and opening up a bit of room as well. So there's a little bit of room to play with between our drivers. But however, Mark Miller trying to go on the attack, seeing if he can move up through the order. Not going to be an easy time. Jumps over the curbs, really gets behind Thomas to see what he... Kurt Moss trying to go after the likes of Mark Miller as they were making their way through. So the Glen definitely becoming a little bit of an interesting circuit for a lot of these drivers, and everyone trying to see it through to the end. A monster field with a absolute chase down to the wire.
Yeah, looks like Alex Ekholm is in the pit lane. He's one of the first to blink at around about the 24-minute to go mark. He's going to need to bring that car to capacity. In the number 7, running with a iRacing of just under 2100. Michael Brock's lead over Colin Winslow is just over 1.1 seconds as the man from Jamaica, Kurt Moss, trying to close in on Mark Miller, the man in the 120 Mobil 1 machine. And then just behind them is from, well, our colleague who appears in the box behind the mic from time to time, Mr. Brian Zinn, is also closing in on the 282 from Jamaica. And he's about half a second back as they come out of the final corner at turn 11, and a big hit into the wall by Kurt Moss. Looked like the left rear took the brunt of the impact. It's a bit like turn 8 at Adelaide. You carry so much speed through the corner. So Kurt Moss, if something is wrong with that steering on the near side front of that car, that could cause problems. But he might decide to tough it out. But it doesn't look like there's much damage to that steering. Yeah, it looks like it's pretty fine as far as I can see. But that damage he might want to get repaired with that sole fast repair. Derek Tyndall is in the pit lane and is going to drop outside of the top 20 as we have 23 minutes to go. We are just approaching half time. And Michael Brock is doing exactly what he needs to. He's taken the same strategy the last 2 races so far and has come out into the lead back again. But Colin Winslow, I have noticed on lap time, is only fractionally quicker than him, and the gap is only about a second. So Michael, as I rightly pointed out earlier on tonight, Steve, as we've got, well, somebody else, I'm not too sure, that's going to be
going and landing up with a penalty. Yeah. And unfortunately, that's not turning into his one.
Yeah, so he's going to have to, he's going to be a dime up and a dollar short, I'm afraid. But still, with just under half the race to go, I think, you know, it's a fast-paced circuit here at the Glen. I think that's what a lot of people tend to forget, and it's quite deceptive. You know, a lot of elevation change. 1,500 meters plus above sea level. But what a track! I mean, of course, very soon there will be. I think, if I remember correctly, there is the iRacing 6 hours of the Glen. I think coming up very soon. So that'll be one for the drivers to get their teeth into. Well, actually, no, the 6 hours of the Glen powered by VCO, fun enough, was actually last month, so it was a month ago. But you can see here, Kurt Moss, despite that drama, and yeah, they're now starting to pull away from Brian Zinn. He's got Mark Miller in his crosshairs as they go down through the outer loop in towards the chute here at turn 6. So yeah, I think again, we're just seeing that drivers are keeping their blackjack cards close to their chest. But look at Moss. He's every which way but loose at the moment in the 282, trying to get through for P6. Up over the rise they go, and it's going to be downhill again. And at the moment, well, I have to say, Mark Miller is doing a really good job, because Kurt Moss cannot find a way past him. And in some respects, Steve, that can brew a little bit of frustration underneath the race helmet of the driver that is at the back end of a 2-car battle. In this case, it's the man who's piggy in the middle of a 3-car battle between him, Miller, and Zinn for that 6th spot. But what this is also doing is costing them time in trying to catch up with Thomas Lathrop, who is just in front of them. Let's not forget, Thomas Lathrop last season was running in the mid-pack Larry, was running in the Going Pros, and he finally got his first overall victory. Thomas has shown a sign of consistency. Right, highest climber so far of the night, Stan Hammonds, from 35th to 12th position, is the first one in the top 15 to pit. So this is going to be quite crucial. Matt Mosby has already been in, and that was on lap 10. We're on lap 15 out of a predicted 26 laps. As you can just see, headlights ablaze, sunset creeping in, and track temperature has started to drop.
Drivers starting to think, what do they need to do to carry on that little bit of momentum? Also, the shadows start to become a little bit of a problem out on the circuit. Mark Miller, however, is watching those rearview mirrors like a hawk, and this is the one thing that you start to stress out as a leading car. Is you're looking in your left, your right, and your center mirror, and it's getting filled up as Kurt Moss is not going and keeping him in any light to take a reprieve. Looking left, looking right, tries to go around the outside. Once again, these two are just hammering their tires, and one driver who's just biding out the time, Brian Zinn, is a little bit back, but he is just waiting for an opportunity to open up.
Yeah, sometimes if an opportunity does not present itself, you have got to try and force that window open. That's exactly what Moss is doing on the back bumper of Miller. Meantime, Colin Winslow at the sharp end of the field has decided to go for the undercut strategy. He's not the only one that's pitted, because looks like Lathrop has done as well. Here comes Moss. He's looking to the inside of Miller, and they are going to be swapping positions, but here he goes. Kurt Moss finally breaks the deadlock through at the 90 at turn 1, and he gets through for what is now 4th position, as Winslow, Lathrop, mid-pack Larry's leader, Kenneth Ingersoll, Kent Kruger in Manti's Grello colours for Bad Dog Racing has also come into the pit. Sean Teeter in the pits. So it is Corey Mitchell and Jack Stadola, who are nearly 0.3 of a second apart. They are leading the mid-pack Larrys. And there is Brian Zinn just keeping a watching brief over Messrs Moss and Miller, which is effectively the battle on the road at the moment for P4. Probably when they rejoin, it will be P6 once all over again, as we hit just over 17 minutes to go. Here's the battle a little bit further back. Corey Mitchell in the Monster Ultra Energy white livery, followed by the Benson and Hedges Eddie Jordan tribute band, Jack Stadola. And they've got Colin Winslow in the, well, it's not, yeah, well, that is not Colin Winslow behind them. That is car 36. which is Ryder Poe, who's also had a black flag penalty. So a couple of drivers have been bitten by the nature of the Glen. Just coming up to 16.5 minutes, still a lot to play for. Top three now in. Brock, Lebke, Zhu now in. Moss is now in. Zinn goes on for another lap. Mark Miller comes into pit lane. So Brian Zinn, can he make this work? Because he now becomes the new de facto race leader. I would say next time around, he is going to be in the pits. But it is all about that all-important transfer time. Michael Brock is already coming towards the end of his pit stop. And he's been in there for just over 12 seconds as here comes Mitchell, Stadola. They're in the pit lane along with Poe, it seems. As oh dear, number 78, and that is Tony Wallace. Black flag return to pits. Oh dear, that's going to be that would have been for a pit lane infraction. But Michael Brock now up through the S's at turns 2 to 4. Now rides onto the back straightaway. So it's all about what happens now with Brian Zinn. Does the number 82 decide to pit? Just over 15.5 minutes to go. And now Mark Miller, he's the latest one to get a black flag penalty. More than likely, he's only just come out of the pits. So was that a pit lane exit infraction or speeding in the pit lane? But Michael Brock is putting the hammer down. This outlap has got to be crucial for him. Colin Winslow, however, was, oh well, look at this for a pit stop. Michael Brock 14.55 on his marks. Colin Winslow 16.1 seconds. So 1.45 seconds gained in the favour of Michael Brock, which is why the gap between him and Winslow is just north of 4.1 seconds. The key point is Brian Zinn now pits, and this means that Michael Brock has a little bit less time to worry about keeping that car ahead of Colin Winslow. But Winslow at the moment, Steve, is starting to close that gap. It was 4.1 seconds on pit lane exit, and they both came out at the same time. It's now down to 3.7. What Brock's got to do now is just be Mr. Lap Time Consistency round about now.
That's all about keeping the drive on the whole way through. And with each of the drivers now thinking about the championship of how it's going to go, who they need to see up at the sharp end of the field, and who is ultimately going to be there. Drivers out on the circuit, Ingersoll currently trying to find a little bit more pace for himself, leading out his class and wanting to try and keep away ahead of Mitchell and Stradola, who have been trying to claw back a little bit of time, see if they can catch up. But Kenneth has had an easy time out so far, keeping the pressure on the pros, but the mid-pack Larry lead, he's more than happy to settle at the top.
Right, Joe Mayer has just decided to pit from 18th spot, and bearing in mind between Kenneth Ingersoll and the number 63 of Corey Mitchell, well, there's a few places between them, because in between they've got Stan Hammond, Spencer Boudoir, Jeremy Littleton and Derek Tyndall, who has recovered a little bit from that nasty sideways moment he had through the top of the hill at turn 4, going onto the back straight out of the S's. But Ingersoll, if Hammond, he just needs to let, I think at the end of the day, he just needs to let the 55 of Skylange Motorsport, Stan Hammonds, to go through if that window is presented. And Ingersoll's battle is with Mitchell, Stadola. Kruger now into P4 and is closing in on the 406 Eddie Jordan Tribute Livery Band, as we have 12.5 minutes to go here at the Glen. Things could be very much said and done, but with this particular series, the Apex this Tuesday's Porsche Cup for season 28, Michael Brock now starting to get into that flow state, tyres back up to temperature, and he is pulling a gap, and he was nearly half a second quicker than Colin Winslow on the previous tour, as we're on lap number 19 out of a predicted 23 with 12 minutes left to go. Winslow does not have the speed that we've seen in previous rounds like the two previously where Matt Mosby was able to best Michael Brock. Nevertheless, never say never. We did see a couple of weeks ago where Michael did have the issue where he just went off track, and that was at Road Atlanta. Brands Hatch, it was pure pace that Mosby had that set the fire underneath him around what I think is the shortest track on the calendar. But Kurt Moss trying to get through on Brian Zinn. Zinn is about half a second up the road. And there you see in the background Matt Mosby for TWRS. A really good character to have now as part of the Going Pro side of things. And looking at the top 3 highest ranked, as we've got Wallace having a black flag there. That's Tony Wallace. That's black flag number 2. As Jack Stadola now is through on Corey Mitchell in the 63. As the man who started 25th now up 11 spots in total and is second in the mid-pack Larrys at the moment. This will help his championship push going into the second half when we head from Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, and we head to Florida for our second race in a row in the Americas, before we then head back over to continental Europe, and we'll be going back and forth over the pond a couple of times, because after Zandvoort next week, in 2 weeks, we'll be heading to St. Petersburg, and then it will be Imola, Monza and Spa-Francorchamps. Meantime, Stan Hammonds has been let go by Kenneth Ingersoll. It was a good play by the number 69. As a lot of drivers with just under 10 minutes to go here, Steve, there's still battles to be decided. I mean, Stadola has now canted away from Mitchell to the tune of 1.3 seconds. Will he be able to close down what is effectively quite a lot of time between himself and Kenneth Ingersoll? Well, bearing in mind they are 17 seconds apart. My process, the answer is an unfortunate, our survey says, for Stadola, but it will help him in terms of the title side of things, because when you look at it, he's currently P6 at the moment, and more to the point, Kent Kruger will still hold on to the lead of the standings, but Kenneth Ingersoll will be the biggest climber and might be on course. Looking at it from this perspective, Kent Kruger at the moment is P4 in the division. That is 16 points, and that puts him on 85. Kenneth Ingersoll will be 1 point behind heading into the next round when we start the second half of season 28 here on Apex this Porsche Cup Tuesdays to Zandvoort. So the title battle in mid-pack Larrys is getting rather exciting, let me say that much.
With that being said, we now halfway through the season, and this is where the drivers have got to think about which battles they're actually going to fight with. As Kurt Moss trying to have a go on Brian Zinn, he looked for the inside to try and see if he could get the pass. But you start changing your mindset of, okay, instead of fighting you for position, I'm going to rather fight with the next person to see where exactly I can move up and get a little bit of a momentum. Jeremy Littleton really mounting the curbs to try and keep back Spencer at the moment, who's completely keeping the pressure on the back of him, trying to move forward. These two, fighting out in 11th and 12th, have been at each other's throats for the last little while. And slowly but surely, Derek Tyndall trying to go and cut down that 8-second deficit that is between himself and the fighting duo.
Yeah, and that gap between Brock and Winslow at the front end of the field is still staying rather much as a stalemate. It's stagnated somewhat because Michael Brock is back to the form we know and appreciate him for as he comes out of turn number 11 and will go across the line. 7 1/4 minutes remaining, running with a 1:45. You're probably talking maybe another 4 laps for the 421 Mountain Dew Baja Blast car as he makes his way through turn 2. Up the S's through 3, and rides the crest onto the back straight here at turn number 4. This man has been absolutely like a metronome, hitting every apex, hitting every braking point, powering out of the corners at the right place, right time. Track temp now 73.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Air temp still has stayed stationary as Michael Brock flying over the curb. So, oh no, Matt Mosby. Matt Mosby has hit trouble, and that is going to bring his run of 2 successive wins on the bounce overall. And that is going to smart, I'm afraid. That car is going to be towed to the pit lane and damaged. And he's not the only one that's going to have to go to the pits, because Stan Hammonds, the man who's made up 27 places, has just got a black flag in the number 55 Sky Lounge Motorsport car. He's now going to have to serve a drive-through penalty, and with 6 minutes to go, that is really going to hurt him in terms of points being allocated. So, yeah, I think it's... but also the fact is, with regards to, like, say, packet loss as well, as Mark Miller rightly points out. So thanks to Mark for putting that in the chat. He's retired as of lap number 16. But you can just see that with regards to these drivers, right on board with Kurt Moss, him and Brian Zinn, they've been playing musical chairs over 6th position. But still, I'm looking at that gap. Colin Winslow is getting quicker and quicker as the time runs out. But they do say that time waits for no one here, Steve, because we've got just over 5 minutes to go until the check-in here at the Glen. And I think Brock has still got a very good opportunity of holding on. I mean, he's having to deal with backmarker traffic, which is compromising him in terms of having clear air. But it's just about micromanaging that at the moment, because you can see just coming through the backer shot, just got a glimpse of Colin Winslow.
Yeah, Colin Winslow just trying to recover some of the points here. Michael Brock, however, just keeping on going, trying to knife his way through the back markers, see what he can do to maximize the points, and not counting out 3rd place, Brian, who has been slowly but surely chipping away into the fight here. He's closed down on Colin, now 1.4 seconds up the road, and seeing what he can do to get involved in the fight as well. He's got to clear through some of the back markers to catch up to Colin Winslow, but I don't think Colin can take a little bit of a breather at this stage of the game. Otherwise, he will have Brian going straight for the pass, and with only 4 minutes to go, it's now or never, especially now that you've reached the halfway mark of the championship.
Yeah. And more to the point, well, Brian Lemke, this is he's only taken part in, this is his 3rd race out of the opening 6. So the first 3 will be counted as drop scores. You know, obviously, real life does get in the way. But more to the point, Michael Brock now puts us onto this plus 3 laps to go. Well, we're on to lap 24. So next time by, we could be very tight on time. And that's where these drivers are now going to have to start to grip it and rip it. And Thomas Lathrop is still battling away with Kevin Zhu, the man from St. Kitts and Nevis, as they go through turn 4. And onto the back stretch. They're pushing well over 140 plus miles an hour, heading into the boot. And there you can see Moss just ahead of Zinn by a nose. Zinn goes late on the brakes. Brian Zinn, textbook. Just let the car roll into the inner loop, and he just managed to get through on Kurt Moss just by sheer speed and precision alone. Teed that up very, very nicely as this battle continues onwards for P6. So the man from the USA in the 82 Maximum Effect Motorsports car, ahead of the man from Jamaica. But, oh, Kevin Zhu, that is not what you wanted to need there. And he's got a black flag. He's hit the incident limit, so that is now going to take him out of the battle for P4. And that's going to promote Lathrop to 4th, Zinn to 5th. And yeah, Kevin Zhu has decided to bail out. He knows that he's got to serve that drive-through penalty. A real shame, but I did say, with the proximity of the barriers here at Watkins Glen, Well, Kevin Zhu has exceeded track limits way too often, and that has caused him to drop a big chunk of points as he dives into the pit lane. So this and 2 more, well, we've got 2 more laps to go, because Michael Brock has crossed the line with more than a minute and 46 on the clock. But what can you say? 2 weeks, it was battling against the might of Matt Mosby, who has unfortunately ended up coming back out into the bottom 6, or the bottom 6th of the top 30. But what about this man here? We've seen him at the beginning of the series doing a really good job leading from lights out to checkered flag. He has got the fastest lap of the race with a 1:45.228. Colin Winslow, his nearest competitor, 3.2 seconds behind. But nevertheless, well, Winslow has got to keep an eye on his rear for the next couple of laps, because Brian Lemke is winding up the bottom, cranking up the bottom 11, in the words of Spinal Tap, and is going hunting. Lemke is never one to count out. He hasn't had the amount of seat time in these Porsche 992.2 Cup cars like the rest of the field, but he is definitely getting into his stride of understanding the dynamics of this 520 horsepower 4-litre flat 6 engine car from Bizar, and is making a good account of himself, because now we are going to go onto the white flag lap as Michael Brock has just under 3.5 miles to bring us back home. White flag in the air. Brock has delivered when it's mattered the most as we go into the halfway point of the season. But Lemke and Winslow, this could be a titanic battle, as they've got a back marker in front, which they've got to try and get through very quickly. And this could give Lemke the opportunity that he needs to get on through.
Well, it's going to be Alexander who was dealing with Dylan Foster for position, and got a little bit of breathing room, allowed him to come off the gas a little bit. Now has to try and see what he can do for Brian. He gave Colin the run. Brian's definitely going to be not a happy camper, as he had to slow down through the stop, and now needs to try and figure out what he can do. A couple of corners separating a second place here, and for Brian, who's been on a hot charge, he's wanting to try and make it work, and it's a spin coming in for Alexander just in front. Brian managing to catch it and go and say, right, not going to happen here. Moves up through the order, and definitely that's killed his chances a little bit, as we do see a good move from Alexander just to hold the brakes and wait it out. That's been a perfect charge for Brian and Moss, who have fought it out with one another. They've got to get past Matt Mosby, who's a back marker, moves over to the right-hand side. Unfortunately, it takes away that apex for the right-hand side in the corner, and it's going to be Kurt Moss down the inside.
Well, no, he's not, as there's going to be contact between the pair, and Zinn goes around, but Michael Brock is just corners away. Drama for Brian Zinn and Kurt Moss. They come together, but it is going to be a win. He's back to winning ways. Michael Brock wins the halfway point round of the season, taking the checkered after 26 laps of racing here at the Glen. Colin Winslow P2, and on his return for his 3rd appearance in season 28, Brian Lemke rounds out the overall podium. I'm not too sure if that result is going to stand. There's going to be a possible check post-race between Kurt Moss and Brian Zinn, but last lap, it's not what either driver wanted. Kenneth Ingersoll picks up the win in the mid-pack Larrys and finishes 7th overall. Jeremy Littleton is going to win the drag race between him and Spencer Baudouin to finish 8th overall. 7 in the class. Kevin Zhu finishes 9th, ahead of Derek Tyndall. Stan Hammonds, but Jack Stadola has taken P2. Corey Mitchell P3 in the mid-pack Larrys, finishing 13th and 14th. Sean Teeter, who started on 9th place, and in mid-pack Larry's pole, he's gone back to the Monster Beast RT Energy livery, but Michael Brock once again has done the business. Again, it was 2 weeks where it didn't quite go his way, and that is going to be his 3rd win out of the 6 rounds so far. And more to the point, with regards to Kenneth Ingersoll, that makes it his, well, apparently, according to what I see, he's had looking at this, 3 appearances, 3 wins. Make that appearance number 4 and a 4th win of the series. Well, what can you say about the Glen? It always delivers. Its topography, unique, but more to the point, it does give us something to really look forward to, because next week we go to the Netherlands, and that is a track that everyone is going to have to get to grips with. But Michael Brock took the victory, well, pretty much led every single lap in that race and won ahead of Colin Winslow by 2.7 seconds. Brian Lemke rounds out the top 3 in car 41, and good to see him back on the grid. Thomas Lathrop and Kurt Moss round out the top 5 ahead of Brian Zinn, Jeremy Littleton, Spencer Baudouin, Kevin Zhu and Derek Tyndall rounding out the top 10. As there you see the remainder of our drivers, well, of the 42 that joined us on the starting grid, 41 making it happen, apart from Jesse Meir, unfortunately. But then we turn to the mid-pack Larrys. Kenneth Ingersoll wins ahead of Jack Stadola, with Corey Mitchell completing the top 3. Sean Teeter was on pole for the race in the mid-pack. Larry started 9th. He finishes P4 in the Class E ahead of Keegan Gierig, who still keeps himself within earshot of the top 3 in the current mid-pack Larry standings. Joao Gabriel, Christopher Laum, Luke Harrigan, Dylan Foster and Bad Dog Racing's Kent Kruger, one of the admins behind the scenes here at Apex This, rounds out your top 10. Well, with that being said and done and dusted, we now go to our Apex Sim Racing post-race interview show, and we've got a few drivers that have already who have already come in to the waiting area. So we're going to bring in the man that now picks up his 3rd win of the series. Michael, good evening. That is win number 3 going into the second half of the season. Lights out to checkered flag, pole position, fastest lap. You couldn't ask for anything better, could you?
No, definitely not, man. It went really well, and I was actually kind of I didn't know what to expect coming into this race, to be honest.
Yeah, considering Matt Mosby was a bit further down the order than I think he probably expected or wanted, so that gave you a bit of a clear run, but nevertheless, you're not going to be sleeping on the couch tonight.
Yeah, hopefully not. Yeah, it was an awesome race. Colin was like, we were like essentially the same pace, like for most of the race. And I thought I screwed up. I went an extra lap, and I really shouldn't have. Like I was crossing like the pit entry with like exactly 1 lap of fuel left, but you always want to leave like just a tiny bit so you can like get down pit lane. So the last lap I was kind of like doing a lot of lift and coast and stuff. So I was anticipating Colin actually coming out in front of me, or whatever. But he must have. I'll have to watch that back. I'm not sure what he must have kind of messed up some pitting issues or something like that. But a question. Yeah. I'd be curious.
Well, actually, when he pitted a lap earlier than you, he actually was stationary for about 1.5 seconds longer in the pit lane. So with you coming out with a 4-second advantage, that really did help you out, I think, in the longer run of things. But still, you did have the better run, and I think it was just a case of doing your best and just getting into the zone, really. And you found your flow, especially in that second half of the race there, Mike. That's what really, I think, paid dividends towards a 3rd race win in the series.
Yeah, right. I kind of had some breathing room, so I could put it in cruise control. But honestly, dude, there was a couple times where I almost lost it in the bus stop because I was kind of like taking it easier, but it ended up like just changing everything around. So then I had to like, I almost have to like be at 100% going through the bus stop because it's like what I'm used to. You know what I mean? So if you slow down, you can kind of, screw yourself up.
Yeah, nevertheless, this puts you into a good frame of mind because it keeps you at the top of the Going Pros heading into Zandvoort next week on August 4th.
Nice, yeah, Zandvoort. Okay, cool. Yeah, I haven't raced there in a while, so that'll be fun. Yeah, they got that like kind of really banked corner or whatever. Yeah, that's a cool one. Yeah, looking forward to that. Yeah, it was a great race. I'm glad Lemke made it back too. He's
Yeah,
been taking a little break, so it's good to see him out there.
yeah, we've missed him as well, but you'll be pleased to know he finished P3 behind Colin. But Mike, as always, great job, buddy. Congratulations on taking 3 wins out of the opening 6 rounds and still being our series leader in the Going Pros. Before we let you go, anyone you want to say thank you to and give a shout out to, as always?
You guys in the booth, as always, you guys do a great job. Everyone at Apex this, and my girl Jen.
Brilliant. And give our regards to Jason as well whilst you're at it, eh?
Right, absolutely. All right, take
Brilliant.
care, guys.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mike. We'll see you next week for round 7 at Zandvoort. Congratulations on the win overall tonight. So a big thank you there to Michael Brock. Let's bring in Colin Winslow. Colin, good evening. You tried as much as you could here at the Glen, but nevertheless, second is still a good finish after what was quite a fast-paced 26-lap race here at the Glen.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with my finish. Bad start. I still got to figure out how to start this car. Really bad at it, but overall, I was pretty happy with it. I overfueled a little bit, but other than that, I think it was a pretty smooth race.
Yeah, we did notice that you were stationary for just over 16.1 seconds on your marks in pit road, and that kind of gave Michael, when he pitted a lap later, I think he said he was on fumes. It gave him that 4-second window, but you closed that by nearly a second and a half in the second half of that race, so he still knew that you were behind him. But nevertheless, I mean, to go, to get to this point in the season, getting halfway through it and picking up another E2, this should help you in terms of the Pro Division Championship standings, because that will put you from 54 to 70 points. Second half's going to get really down. You're gonna have to get down a bit more to brass tacks and see what more you can pull out of that Porsche 992.2 Cup car.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still figuring this car out, but yeah, definitely excited for the second half of the season. I gotta take a look at the schedule. I don't even know what's there. So,
well, okay. Well, let me just. Actually, we've got Sebring, Zandvoort, St. Pete, Imola, Monza, and Spa. Those are the last 6 rounds we've got. So, you got a lot of learning to do. But I have to ask you, because this is one question that I always tend to ask drivers that we haven't spoken to in the Apex Sim Racing post-race interview show. What's been the biggest learning curve for you jumping out of a GT4 into these Cup cars?
well, I was not driving the GT4 in the last season, but I will say just the biggest difference for me, at least I have experience in the GT3s, is just how much you have to really kind of baby the brakes in this thing. It's super easy to overdrive this car.
I can completely understand that, but nevertheless, a P2 in the bag here at the Glen. Before we let you go, Colin, anyone you want to give a shout out to in particular?
Yeah, shout out to my wife. I think she's watching right now. Shout out to you guys. You guys do a great job.
Brilliant. Well, Colin, we'll see you next week for round 7 at Sebring. Well done tonight.
Appreciate it. See you, boys.
All right, big thank you there to Colin Winslow. We've got the last of our top 3, Mr. Lemke. Welcome back. And a podium to boot.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I once Michael gets out front, boy, is he gone, huh? He just checked right out. And I think I was slowly catching Colin there at the end, but even if I got to him, I'm not sure I was going to be able to do anything to get around. He had plenty of pace too, so I was kind of in no man's land for a little bit, just trying to put laps together, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a bit of a different beast from the BMW you've been campaigning for the last 2 seasons of the GT4s before we switched to the Cup car. But again, it just goes to show that with over 40 cars on the grid, that Apex this Tuesdays is definitely going strong at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. I would be lying if I said I don't miss my BMW, or at least having the motor in the front. I think these Porsches have been a very big change for me, but I couldn't miss Watkins Glen. This is a super fun track, and so I had to get in, do some practice, do some laps, and see if I could get the car underneath me, which I did. I think I had a really good night, so I was really happy with that.
Well, it's always a pleasure to speak to you in the post-race interview show, Brian, but Are we going to see you next week at Sebring? I know that Mike did say that you've been taking a little bit of a step back and making appearances when you can. Are we going to see you for Sebring, buddy? Because that should be a hell of a battle between these cup cars around that track.
Yeah, I think so. That's a good track for sure. So if I got nothing going on, I'll hop on. But yeah, I took a bit of a break earlier on, and which kind of lets me, instead of points racing every race, I can kind of just go out and try to put my best laps together and not care about the X's and stuff. So it's been fun. It's a little bit different, a little bit changed for me. So I like it.
Brilliant. Well, Ryan, as always, pleasure to chat to you. Before we let you go, anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, shout out to you guys for putting on the broadcast. Always tons of fun. And Racer Nexus and Sky Lounge and everybody at Apex and all the drivers that come out and make this league as much fun as it is. Appreciate everybody for coming out.
Brilliant. Well, hopefully, Brian, we'll see you back on the grid in the number 41 Sky Lounge Motorsport entry for round 7 next time out at Sebring in a week's time. Well done tonight on the P3.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we've got time for one more interview, and it's actually going to be with the individual that made up the most places in this race, Stan Hammonds. Welcome in. Firstly, you made up some major ground in that race, despite the black flag penalty in the second half.
Dude, I am so disappointed. I think I might could have gone plus 30, maybe.
Oh,
But the black flag killed me because I was pushing so hard, and I got a 4X on lap 1 that was just 500 cars in the same place at the same time. I think if I would have had a little more leeway on the incident points, I could have maybe done it. But I got up to like 9 or 10x, and it's like, okay, I need to chill. I need to slow down. And then when I slowed down, I was like missing my marks. So it actually made it worse. And I just, it's so frustrating. But I don't know how many spots I actually ended up.
I think it was 24 in the end.
Well, I guess that's still okay. That was super fun. It was, man, this is such a great combo. I was having fun the whole race, constantly racing people, constantly passing people, and this combo is just awesome. This car at this track is just so much fun. We could just do this for 12 weeks and I wouldn't complain.
I think you'd probably get a few people up in arms for saying that, Stan, but never mind. Anyhow, mega effort by yourself. I mean, obviously, qualifying, as we've seen here in Apex this Porsche Cup Tuesdays, doesn't always necessarily mean you're going to end up there come the checkered flag. Nevertheless, puts you in a good frame of mind for Sebring next week for round 7 when we get into the second half of the series.
Well, unfortunately, I am out of town at work next week, so I'm going to be honest with you. I don't even like Sebring. I'm not even mad. I mean, Sebring's fine. I don't hate Sebring, but it's not my favorite. So if that's the one that I have to miss, then I'll be fine. I'll find a way to suffer through it.
Well, then, if you're back with us at week 8, it's going to be Zandvoort instead, so a different challenge altogether. But nevertheless,
I hate that one even worse.
two duff tracks in 2 respective weeks, but then I have to say that the 4-week combo that we've got that brings us to the end of season 28, when we've got St. Pete, Imola, Monza, and then the daddy of them all, Spa, on September 1st. That's a hell of a 4-week stretch, isn't it?
That is going to be so awesome, man. Especially in this series, like this car, the long races with the pit stop and everything. It just, man, this is so much fun. This is such a great series that we're doing right now, and especially with that combo to finish it out. Spa's going to be insane. Like, they could make Spa pay-per-view, and I bet people sign up to watch. That's going to be so awesome. And man, I can't wait. This is just so much fun. I love the Porsche Cup Car. I know that there are some people that aren't huge fans of it in the league, but I've really enjoyed it, and I feel like it's created a lot of action just by the nature of the car. So I'm a huge fan. I'm totally happy. I'm having a great time.
Brilliant. Well, Stan, thanks a lot for talking to us. I think your first time actually since I joined at season 26 when we actually had you in the booth. So they do say there is a first time for everything, but well done on being our hardest charger of the night. Stan Hammonds, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all. Great work.
So that wraps up our Apex Sim Racing post-race interview show. If you do want a little bit of a discount, go to the referral link in the description down below and use the coupon code APEXTHIS for 5% off all purchases. Steve, we go from the Glen to Florida to Sebring. That is going to be a true test, a very, very flat circuit, but one that has tarmac surface changes, undulation, and more to the point, close battle racing. It's going to be a slobber knocker there.
It's going to be a great one, and I do think the drivers will have to think outside the box. They will also have to be rather patient, as it's not the easiest circuit to get past. We got to see some of the action here at Watkins Glen, and well, August 7th we come back to see all the action here on the Racer Nexus channel.
Yeah, this Racer Nexus broadcast has been powered by Apex Sim Racing, track cams for gourmets, trackcams.22.com, Apex this, and of course us here at Racer Nexus. Let's have a look at the upcoming schedule that is due to hit your screens. Well, at the moment, if you want a bit more racing action, Throttle Freak Season 3, Week 5, GT3 is at VIR at the moment. Then ASRL Indy Next heads to Detroit Belle Isle. FMA WEC heads to Week 6, the halfway point of their season at Road America. And then High Point Racing IMSA Season 6 returns. Race 1 heads to Ferrari's territory at Imola. Special Stage Pro Trucks, Apex this Mazda Cup, also at Watkins Glen, HPR GT World Challenge at Imola. And then FMA Gen 4 at Week 6 Darlington, Pony Express GT3 Season 3 Round 5 Mid-Ohio, and FMA GT3 Season 3 Week 20 and that's Season 26 Week 7 at VIR. You've been in the company of Alex Goldschmidt and Steve Koenig. It has been a real pleasure seeing these Porsche Cup cars roar around the Glen, but Sebring beckons for the second half of the Apex this Tuesday's Porsche Cup Championship that heads into the second half of Season 28. Until next time, thank you so much for warning. We'll see you next time when it's time for Flat 6 Box of Power to roar around the countryside in Florida.